The night the truth began to crack, the city lights of Sydney glimmered like false stars outside the penthouse window. Elena Parker had everything a woman could dream of: love, wealth, and a man the world envied. Her husband, Adrian Cole, was a self-made millionaire who once told her, "You'll never have to doubt me." But tonight, his voice carried a distance she could not explain. The phone rang constantly. His tone softened only when he said her name, yet not Elena's. Another name she did not recognize whispered through the shadows of the study door. Elena stood frozen, her hand resting on her growing belly, her heart pounding louder than the ticking clock on the marble wall. She wanted to believe it was business. She wanted to believe him. But something in his eyes had changed. Something cold had taken root. When she asked if he was all right, he smiled tightly and said, "You worry too much." Then he left for a meeting at midnight, leaving behind the scent of expensive cologne and doubt. Hours later, a message appeared on his tablet, glowing in the dark. "I did what you asked." She has no idea. Elena's fingers trembled as she read it. The woman's name matched the one she'd heard whispered earlier. A wave of nausea struck her, not from pregnancy but from realization. The man she trusted more than anyone might be living a lie, and what terrified her most wasn't the betrayal. It was the question clawing inside her. How far would he go to protect that lie? Morning sunlight filtered through the wide glass windows, painting golden streaks across the penthouse floor. Elena sat at the breakfast table, untouched coffee growing cold beside her. Adrian walked in, crisp in his navy suit, looking every bit the charming businessman the world adored. But she could see through the polished smile now. His phone buzzed again, and his eyes darted to it before he quickly turned it face down. Her heart raced, but she said nothing. Silence, she realized, could be louder than confrontation. He kissed her forehead, the gesture mechanical, rehearsed. "Don't stress yourself," he murmured, before disappearing into the elevator. The metallic doors closed with a sound that felt final. As soon as he left, Elena opened the tablet again, scrolling through messages she had been too afraid to read last night. Every line cut deeper. The woman spoke to Adrian like someone who shared his secrets, someone who knew parts of him Elena never would. Words like "tonight's plan" and "she won't suspect" echoed in her mind. Her chest tightened as she looked around the luxurious apartment. Every expensive piece of furniture now felt like a wall closing in. She picked up a framed photo of them at their wedding, two smiling faces promising forever. How strange that trust could fade faster than a photograph's gloss. Determined to find answers, she followed a hunch and searched the drawer Adrian always kept locked. The key, however, wasn't where it used to be, but something else was. A folded note tucked under a stack of documents. In Adrian's unmistakable handwriting, it read, "She can't know the truth." Not yet. Her breath caught. The words didn't explain much, but they confirmed everything she feared. As thunder rolled outside, she realized her life was no longer what it seemed. The man she once trusted completely might be leading her into a storm she couldn't escape. And this time, she would have to find the truth alone. 2 days later, the air in the penthouse felt heavier, like the calm before a storm. Elena couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. Adrian had become even more distant. His meetings stretched past midnight, his explanations shorter, colder. But what unsettled her most was the new presence in their home, Adrian's assistant, Vanessa Lee. She arrived early, stayed late, and carried an air of quiet control. Her voice was soft, polite, yet something in her eyes warned of hidden intentions. That afternoon, Vanessa appeared at the door with a smile too sweet to trust. "Adrian asked me to drop off some files," she said smoothly, setting a silver briefcase on the marble counter. Elena nodded, though her pulse quickened. When Vanessa turned to leave, Elena's gaze caught a small velvet pouch slipping from the briefcase. Vanessa froze for half a second before laughing it off. "Just a client's gift," she said lightly, tucking it back in. The unease deepened. Later that evening, Adrian came home pale and tense. "Have you seen the heirloom necklace?" he asked abruptly, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. It was his late mother's piece, a symbol of his family's legacy. Elena frowned in confusion. "No, why?" He said nothing, just stormed toward the safe and opened it. Empty. His expression shifted from shock to suspicion. "You were the last one near it," he whispered. The words stung like a slap. Before she could speak, the elevator chimed, and Vanessa stepped in as if on cue, her face painted with feigned surprise. "Oh no," she gasped, glancing at Elena. "I saw her with something similar this morning." Elena's stomach dropped. "That's not true," she protested. But Adrian's silence spoke louder than any accusation. For the first time she saw fear in his eyes, not of loss, but of betrayal. In that chilling moment, Elena realized she wasn't just being doubted, she was being framed. The question that burned in her chest wasn't who did this, but why? What secret could be worth destroying her for? The following morning, Elena woke to the sound of knocking, loud, official, and cold. 2 uniformed officers stood at her door, their expressions unreadable. "Mrs. Parker?" "We have a warrant to search the premises," one of them said. Adrian stood behind them, avoiding her gaze, his jaw clenched. Elena's world tilted. "Adrian, what's going on?" she whispered, clutching her robe. His answer was a single sentence that shattered her heart. "The necklace was found in your drawer." The room blurred. "That's impossible," she cried. But the officers were already moving, their gloved hands opening drawers, lifting cushions, and sealing evidence bags. When one of them held up the velvet pouch Vanessa had dropped days earlier, Elena felt the air leave her lungs. The officers exchanged glances. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us." She turned to Adrian, desperate for even a flicker of belief, but his eyes had gone cold, empty. "You lied to me," he said quietly. "And to think I defended you." Her knees nearly gave out. "I would never steal from you," she whispered. "Not from your family, not from you." But he didn't answer. Vanessa stood in the corner, pretending to comfort him, her hand lightly touching his arm. The gesture was small, but it told Elena everything. This was planned. Every piece had been carefully placed, every doubt planted at the perfect time. As they escorted her out, cameras flashed from the street below. Her name was already being dragged through headlines. Pregnant architect accused of theft. Inside the police car, Elena pressed her palms to her belly, whispering to her unborn child, "I'll fix this. I promise." She didn't yet know how, but she would fight. Not just for her freedom, but for truth itself. That night, in the echoing cell of Silverwater Correctional, she made a silent vow. "You took my trust," she whispered into the darkness, "but you won't take my strength." Somewhere far above her, the man she loved was celebrating a lie, and soon He would learn what happens when love betrayed learns to fight back. Days turned into weeks, and the silence of the cell became both her punishment and her strength. The world outside had already made its judgment. Every headline painted her as the woman who betrayed her millionaire husband. But Elena refused to break. Each night she pressed her hand against her stomach, whispering to her unborn child, "You will know the truth one day. You'll know your mother never gave up." Those words became her heartbeat. Inside the gray walls of Silverwater, Elena met people who had also been forgotten, women broken by lies, mistakes, and the world's cruelty. One of them, an older inmate named Rosa, became her quiet guardian. "You don't belong here," Rosa said one night, handing her an old notebook. "Write your truth. Don't let them take your voice." And Elena did. Each page became a lifeline, a confession, a memory, a promise of justice. One rainy afternoon, a lawyer named Daniel Gray visited her. His eyes were sharp, but his tone was kind. "Someone sent me your letters," he said, placing her notebook on the table. "And I believe you're innocent." For the first time in months, hope flickered. He explained that new inconsistencies had surfaced. Transactions in Vanessa's name, fake receipts, and missing surveillance footage from the day the necklace disappeared. "Someone wanted this to look perfect," he said. "Too perfect." Elena's pulse raced. "You think it was her?" she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "And maybe," he added, "someone else who needed you out of the way." The truth was beginning to breathe again, but she knew the path to freedom wouldn't come without pain. That night, as thunder roared over the city, Elena made a promise that echoed through the darkness. "They built this trap for me," she said softly, "but I'll make them fall into it themselves." For the first time since her arrest, she smiled, not with bitterness, but with resolve. The woman who entered that prison broken was now rising, piece by piece, into someone unstoppable. The day of the appeal arrived under a pale Sydney sky. Elena walked into the courtroom in a simple beige dress, her posture steady, her heart armored by months of pain. Every camera turned toward her as she entered, whispers following her like shadows. Adrian was already there, seated beside Vanessa, their faces unreadable. But this time Elena didn't tremble. She looked straight ahead, no longer a woman betrayed. She was a mother fighting for her truth. Daniel began the case with quiet fire. He laid out the timeline, the missing security footage, and the money transfers linked directly to Vanessa's private account. Every piece was like a stone falling into place. The courtroom leaned in when he revealed the most shocking evidence. An intercepted message sent from Vanessa's phone to Adrian weeks before Elena's arrest. "Once she's gone, you'll have everything to yourself." The words hung heavy in the air. Adrian's face turned pale, his composure cracking for the first time. Vanessa tried to deny it, but her trembling hands betrayed her. "I was only following orders," she blurted out. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled, judges called for silence, and Adrian buried his face in his hands. Elena stood there, her eyes glistening, not in triumph, but in quiet heartbreak. The man she had loved had chosen greed over truth, yet destiny had chosen justice over lies. When the judge finally said the words, "Case dismissed," the air in the room shifted. Elena felt the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. She didn't look back at Adrian as she left. Some closures are better left behind. Outside, the city that once condemned her now watched her rise again. Cameras flashed, microphones extended, but all she did was whisper, "Freedom feels like breathing for the first time." Months later, Elena opened her own architecture studio, naming it The Second Foundation. It stood as a symbol of resilience, of a woman who lost everything but found herself. And when she tucked her son into bed at night, she told him, "One day you'll learn that trust can be broken, but courage rebuilds everything."